The mantra 9 to noon. You ought to be having fun with your buddy Paul Allen. Brett Blakemore by my side. Welcome back. We ain't going to get you verbally on the run. We're going to set the record straight and set things straight, specifically from the world of hockey with Pat Micheletti, beloved Mick Tocchet. I had to run him down now before he's traveling abroad for a hot tick. And at Pat Mick 2626 is where you find him on Twitter. At Pat Mick 2626. Good morning, Tocchet. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
Pretty well. So, is it okay if I share what you shared with me via text yesterday about your upcoming week?
Sure, fine. Okay. I have no problem.
Well, you're taking a 21-day vacation. I don't even know what your job is, but
I wish it was 21, but 10.
I don't even know what your job is, but you're taking a vacation, which I'm playing with you. But Istanbul, Turkey, Israel, and I mean, it's a really, really aggressive trip you have coming back with the climate of the world and everything. So, I mean, may God be with you. And what do you have to say for yourself right now?
I'm excited. I need a vacation. Mm-hmm. I want a vacation, and I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, handicapping all of those midnight South Korean baseball games is one thing. But then actually watching them until 3 a.m, that's another thing. And, man, that'll put some fatigue on a brother right there. So if anybody needs a 3-week vacation concurrently or consecutively, it is Mick Tocchet, isn't it?
It is, especially after, handicapping Australian rules football for the last month. I'm tuckered.
Hey, what was the most recent major, the PGA, right? All right, 3-2. Rumor has it you're taking this elongated vacation because of what I did to you in the PGA in the KG press box pool. Is that true? Can you confirm or deny?
I honestly, and how many have we done of these, years and years? Mm-hmm. That was the most impressive victory I have seen in a most difficult tournament to handicap. Yeah. And listen, I was in awe. I was happy not to make the cut just so I could watch your team destroy everybody else.
My ding-a-ling.
Do you want to go back to a couple majors, though, or no?
Oh, no. But the thing is, I'm a noted golf mind. So when people think
That's why I have selected you to pick my team.
Yeah, right.
Next week for the U.S. Open.
Yeah. Well, I mean, It's getting down to the point where you and I are winning these. And I'm winning 1 or 2 every year. You're winning 1 or 2 every year. And I'm concerned the captain, Wes Walls, is just like eventually going to back out because he never wins.
Hopefully he's in Calgary right now or, on his summer vacation and not hearing any of this right now. But I agree. I agree with you.
Tocchet, the Celtics are minus 230, the Mavs plus 180 for the series. Who do you like and why?
I love Dallas. And I'll tell you why. Even though Porzingis is back, I just think inside and in the paint and around the rim, I just think the Mavericks will own them. And then, when you have arguably the best guard combination ever to play the game, in Doncic and Kyrie, we saw what they did, right? And so I really, really like Dallas, and I think their ancillary players, their those guys did such a good job against the Timberwolves. I really like. I think I would jump on Dallas.
All right, Pat, the Florida Panthers, your beloved Floridians, Sunrise, Florida, go crazy. They're just 125 to beat Edmonton. I thought it'd be a little fatter. Who do you like in that series and why?
Well, I thought it would be a lot fatter also, and I tell you, I struggle with this one a little bit because if you just, if you look at the elongated series that it could be, a 7-game series, I think ultimately Florida will come out on top because they play the same way all the time, whether they're up, whether they're down, and, they do a very good job. They're really, really hard in front of the net. And I think that's going to be a problem for the Edmonton decor and their goaltender. And so I just think that, when it gets to those hard goals and those hard areas, I think they're a little better. Now, Edmonton, in the last 3 games of that Dallas series, they really shut it down. They didn't allow anything, and ultimately they won the game. So they've improved in that area. And whenever you have the best player in the game, and Connor McDavid, and another guy in Draisaitl, who might be the best playmaker in the game, and then Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and so they're a team that found themselves. Remember, they started out the season worse than the Minnesota Wild did. They were 3-8-1, made a coaching change in Chris Knobloch, who, by the way, was Connor McDavid's coach in junior.
Wow.
Brilliant move by Ken Holland to bring him in. And, they reeled off 16 wins in a row. I think it's going to be a great series, but I'm going to give the edge to Florida.
Is Alexander Barkov considered a superstar league-wide? I mean, he's the Selke winner for the best defensive forward, but playing in Sunrise, Florida generally doesn't lead to superstardom. Is he considered a superstar?
I think with the people who follow the game, he certainly is.
Yeah.
If you talk about Alexander Barkov to anybody who doesn't follow the game, they won't know who he is. He's one of those players that he just does everything, and he does everything right, and he's big, and he's strong, and and he can do everything, and he's in the Florida market, right? And so he's not in New York, he's not in Chicago, and so he doesn't really get brought up a lot. But for the people who follow the game and for the people who are in the game, he's certainly a top 5-10 player in the league.
Hey,
no question about it.
My brother, I got you on the U.S. Open golf next week. Just send me your preferred picks. I'll draft for you. God bless you and your family, and have some wonderful, well-deserved time off, okay?
Always great to talk to you. Thank you, my friend.
See you, buddy. That's Mick Tocchet. 9 to noon continues after this. Hey, Double B.
Hey, what?
Something has happened at Kansas City Chiefs minicamp, and we have ESPN on in the 651 Carpets Plus studios, and I went to look for it quickly online, and then I was chatting with Abbott about some stuff. So here it is. I got it. PFT. We. So this is about 30 minutes. This is scary. Wow. The Kansas City Chiefs canceled practice after player has medical emergency. But see, there's an update to this because now it's players. The Kansas City Chiefs, now these are defensive players and they're backups. Okay, not that matters because they're human beings. But the Chiefs have canceled today's practice after a player had a medical emergency. The identity of the player has not been released, according to multiple reports. Backup player was treated by the team's medical staff at the facility, then taken by ambulance. All right, now this doesn't say what I saw on ESPN. What I saw on ESPN was, I'll get it via Twitter. Go to .com Tom's Twitter page.
Yes, so, here's Tom's latest tweet.
Thank you, because it's 2 players and it's seizures, right?
So here's his latest tweet. The Chiefs canceled all team activities today after a backup defensive lineman had a seizure in a special teams meeting and went into cardiac arrest per sources.
In a meeting?
Yes. Wow. The team's medical staff worked quickly and an ambulance was called and the player is currently in stable condition.
Okay.
So.
That was one player?
That's what it says.
Okay, well, find a previous one. Because it is 2 players, I believe, unless Tom deleted it. I mean, unless I saw it wrong. It was. I thought it was a couple of players. Okay, well, I mean, it's my L here then, but a seizure.
He must have deleted it then.
A seizure in a meeting. Wow, that is scary. Have you ever been around seizures?
No,
you haven't. Yeah,
no,
I have.
Thankfully,
I have.
Yeah,
it quite honestly, I'm not gonna get too far in the weeds on this or anything because I just don't, I mean, it's jarring. It's about the only way to put it. But my son, Derek, he had a seizure. I'd say it was whenever the Minnesota Vikings last beat the Seattle Seahawks at U.S. Bank Stadium. Feels like 2021, something like that. And I'm at home, and, fortunately with my children, my daughter in Colorado, my son here, we share location, and we share location. I'm not, hey, when you have a 21-year-old daughter, 1,100 miles away, going to college, if you're going to live on location, starting at 10 p.m. till 3 a.m., you ain't going to get any sleep. So we don't do it for that reason. I don't do it for that reason. We do it for this reason, where my son had a seizure, and I'm trying to get in touch with him. And his mom alerted me that when he left, he was just a little off, like seemed a little neurologically off, but nothing significant. So, well, then I'm calling him, and he's not answering. And then I go to location, the search the location thing via Apple. And it had him at a speedway in Eden Prairie by where he was living at the time. Basically, the speedway across from Jerry's, which would be Highway 5, and it would be 5 and 4. So you got a Walgreens, you got Jerry's, you got Speedway, and you got like Dairy Queen and a Starbucks on the other side. And he wasn't answering. So the speed laws that I broke, driving 8 minutes from the side of town on which I live over to that speedway. I mean, I'm with all due respect to EPPD, nobody saw me, but I'm going 110 on Pioneer Trail, man, because I'm worried about my kid. And I get there, and he's seizing. I'm not even going to tell any more of the story because I'm starting to get upset. He's seizing in his car, and it's locked. And I can't get to him, and I can't break the window. And finally, they get there, and the emergency team did an unbelievably good job. Got there super quick, EMTs, like 90 seconds after the call. Broke the window, got him out. He was unresponsive for 30 hours. And it's jarring, about the only way to put it. So when I saw that story, that's the first thing I thought of. And those who have been next to seizures, and my son has bounced out of it completely fine. Take seizure medication all of a sudden, but he bounced out of it completely fine. So, he's no worse for the wear, but those 32 hours of your child not being responsive, whoa. And then looking at him in a car that I can't get into, like, buddy, come on, bam, 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 buddy, bam, 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 on the window as hard as I can. And like the head slowly, it's like bobbling, and then like looks up with glaze. I mean, he sees. I don't know why. That was awful. So may God guide the Kansas City Chief, who's going through this right now, and his friends and his family members, because I've been right next to it. And it's ugly, and it's scary, and it's awful. So God bless that young man. Chris Finch joined 9 to noon earlier this fine Thursday, and we're going to play back some of that interview around the corner on KFAN. Finchy, elongated sit down, podcasted later, KFAN.com. Chatted about 45 minutes over 2 segments. Began with, man, 5 weeks ago you toppled. What's the status of the knee?
About a month left in the brace. Mm-hmm. I'm nearing the end. I'm nearing the end of crutches.
Yeah, you don't have a crutch right now.
Yeah,
with the exception of Aaron Freeman.
Yeah, don't tell the doctor.
Well, that's your right hand man. He's not your crutch.
He is. He's a great crutch. And then I got about 4 or 5 months of continuous rehab on top of it. And then they say it's about a year until it's back to normal. Mm-hmm. So
a lot of high end rehab places all around the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you thought about that?
Well, I'm lucky to have one. We have a secret door between our facility and Mayo.
Yeah.
The orthopedic clinic at Mayo. So I just walk through that door and get teleported into some great physical therapy. Well,
and my suggestion was in no way an affront to the Mayo Clinic.
Yeah.
It basically was thinking about coach/friend and R&R. After it was a long run and a long grind through the Western Conference Finals. I'm like Las Vegas has some for 2 or 3 days. South Florida. I hear there's probably a good one in Amsterdam, just to get away for a little bit and like clear your mind, right?
I think, well, I'll definitely get away. I'm actually looking forward to just this decompression period after the season. It's crazy to think the draft is right around the corner. You know, we started some of those conversations in the building already. I know the front office has already been working for weeks on it. It just kind of never really stops, but later on this summer, I'll definitely get away.
When is the NBA draft? Couple of weeks?
Yeah, the 26th and the 27th.
Oh, geez. So that means Chicago Combine?
Gone already several weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah.
What, just cursory look, not that maybe you've gone to deep diving it, but like the first round of the NBA draft or the overall draft, like what's it look like this year?
I think there's a lot of, it's a pretty level draft. I don't think there's a lot of like franchise changing guys in it. But I do believe there's a lot of older players that can help you maybe right away.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of a legacy of this is the kind of the last of the COVID class where
Right.
those guys get the extra year.
Yeah.
And they've stayed in college and they've maybe transferred a couple times. So now you're going to have guys a little bit more kind of ready to come in and help in a role, which is great for us because that's really what we need. You know, we kind of have our main guys set. We just need guys to come in and maybe with some physical maturity and some emotional maturity because they've been through it enough. They can come in and help us.
Remember Evan Eschmeyer?
Yes,
Northwestern, right? Yeah. Evan Eschmeyer was draftable player, pandemic draftable player guy before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Whereas at Northwestern like 6.5 years.
Yeah, exactly. And we see that now all over the landscape.
And you guys have 2 rounds, like in the NFL with 7 rounds. There were a lot of general managers that I would hear at the combine, or I think it was Howie Roseman with your Eagles who came out and is like, well, with all due respect, because of the ages of some of these players, and the way the pandemic impacted skipping years and stuff like that, is like the draft really fell off supposedly like deep in the draft for the first time in a while. And, so therefore like players coming into your league, generally they'll come in 20-ish, 21.
Yeah. The top end of the draft comes in at 19, 20.
Okay. So this would be like players coming in at 20, 21, 22, stuff like that, like a bunch of Buddy Hields coming here from Bahamas.
Yeah, even 23 to 25. There's a couple of guys that are going to push that age bracket.
Just in looking back for a second, it's when I was writing this yesterday, I'm like, honestly, can you freaking believe the knee situation happened as you were sweeping a team to move on to play seriously, when you just think about it, can you believe that happened? It's so crazy.
Yeah, when I look back on it, no. When it happened, I was, kind of surprised, of course. Thought it was surreal. But I was really most pleased with the sweep, to be quite honest with you. And then reality set in. And I think we may have talked about this before, but a buddy of mine said, man, of all the coaching injuries, that's got to be one of the worst. I said, how many have you ever seen?
Oh, by the way, how is Vinny the Southie? I haven't heard about him in quite some time.
Yeah. So I was one of those things and then just thought, I've had probably a 48-hour period of feeling sorry for myself. And I was like, okay, this isn't going to get us anywhere. We got to figure out what our new reality looks like.
Yeah. Do you remember like the fans next to you? Is like seeing their and you've watched it back, of course, right?
No. Well, I've watched it one time.
Okay.
So.
Well, like the fans next to you were like joyous for a second, thinking, "Hey, I got Devin Booker here. Whoa, there's Mike Conley and the head coach."
Yeah.
But then you toppled, and like you could tell there was concern. Like, do you remember hearing anything during that time? Like no, or a fan saying something.
I just remember Mike talking to me. I just remember Mike asking me if I was okay, take my time, and I couldn't move my leg. And that's when I knew something was seriously wrong. And the pain was the pain. That was also an indicator that something was really wrong. But when I couldn't move my leg and then I went to feel my kneecap, and my kneecap wasn't there. My kneecap had slid up my thigh.
Oh, come on.
I know.
Compound kneecaps. I've never heard of that.
Ooh.
Damn, Max. Why's his kneecap got to slide,
Well,
man?
I just read that you can give like meniscus donations. I'd have gave you mine, Chris. If you needed a knee. If you ever need a knee, I got 2 for you, bro.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. So, I mean, my knees were not great anyway. So, but yeah, so it was just, I knew it was bad, but I thought, okay, dislocated kneecap. I know they can pop those back in. Maybe, I'm sore for a little while, wrap it up. But then when I got to the back, the doc said patella tendon tear.
Mm-hmm. Was that Sheldon Burns?
No, it was Dr. Okora,
Okay.
our orthopedics.
Well, because Sheldon would have wanted to talk about the history of your family, and just so how you been?
Yeah.
This hurts, Sheldon. Oh, that Joe, geez.
Yeah.
But he's wonderful. He's my family doctor. I've known him for years, like you.
Yeah.
With the squad, and maybe you've broached this. I'm going to put it this way, and maybe I missed it and you said it like this. But is it fair to say that you guys might have run out of some form of metaphorical gas sweeping the champions? I mean, I know you're not excuse guy and you're not loser lament guy. I'm just trying to be realistic here. Like, it took a lot to do what you did against Denver, and working with a team when you win a game on the road and it's a big game. I mean, it's it's more joyous than like a home game.
Yeah.
It's just different because you have fewer distractions around you. So 7 games, Jokic, road wins, and that win at the end. Did you guys run out of gas a little bit? Maybe.
I do think so. One thing we learned is that every series you go through, the other teams won 2. I mean, Dallas had won 2 series prior to us playing them, so they're a very good team. They're battle tested. They've gone through some stuff too, and you got to keep answering the bell at a higher and higher level. I think the Denver series, we came in emotionally flat after that. I saw a stat that said teams having won a Game 7, playing against a team who didn't play a Game 7 was 0-14. And that makes a lot of sense. It's just the emotional high of winning Game 7 and then having to turn around 48 hours later and play Game 1. I thought that was in many ways like kind of, our most, like our poorest effort of the, other than the Game 5 when we just didn't look good at all. But, we just kind of didn't have that juice that we needed. And looking back, it was emotional, energy was gone. We tried to get to it, but it just wasn't there. Game 2 is the one where the whole series changed. Again, up big, up 18. They slowly chip it away, and then we have a lot of mistakes down in the last 2 minutes, and then Luka hits the 3 at the buzzer nearly to finish us off. So games 1 and 2, one was probably more emotional, one was probably more physical, but both of them we kind of probably ran out of gas.
Do you think, Chris? Do you think it's, or how good is it for Anthony Edwards to see what he saw, and maybe see what Luka can do, and like how he handles things as Edwards continues to surge?
Yeah, I think
you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's invaluable, these experiences that you go through. Luka's 25. He made his first Western Conference Finals, I think, when he was 23, so a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. Anthony's only 22. These experiences matter. One thing about Luka is that people forget is, he won a European championship at age 20, I believe, and he's won professional championships in Europe with his club in Real Madrid as well as a young player. So it's not just these high leverage moments that he's gotten comfortable with. He's always been in them, So Anthony's still stacking up those experiences. I thought he was phenomenal in the playoffs, and Dallas was the only series I think where it took him a little while to figure out how to unlock some stuff, which is also good because going into the summer he knows now a little bit more what he needs to focus on, how it's going to be. I think the physical and the mental fatigue needed to overcome, that he needs to overcome as the series goes on and on. I think he learned there. I know he made a comment about having to be in better and better shape, and the playoffs in many ways are kind of a war of attrition, whether it be injuries or stamina.
And it's just so crazy, like how on a given night, well, you've heard me say this before, human nature gets to win.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be patches of quarters. It can be nights. And, like, look at the Celtics. I mean, the Celtics are favored to win the NBA championship. And they had a game against Miami where they're playing no Butler, heroes either out or way off. They got killed.
Yeah.
So I mean, you look at some things and like Dallas. Okay, Dallas might win the championship. Dallas, specifically with those two, obviously is quality. The Clippers, they had Kawhi or the skeletal remains thereof until he revs himself up again. Yeah. First game of that playoff series, Dallas is getting killed. They're down like 20 or 30 in that first game. They cut it to like 12. Yeah. So there is why do you think that happens where there are just moments, game 2 for you guys, which we'll get into momentarily, where there are just games where you're like, wow, where did that come from?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it happened. I think a great example of that is game 2 in the Denver series. We win by 32, or we're up 32 at one point. Game 3, we're down 34. The pendulous swings in the league. That's going to become hallmark of the league right now. Just the volatility and the very variable shooting qualities that players have. Guys can get hot like nobody else. The speed of the game is higher than ever. Seemingly runs just can go on for a long, long time. And, so I think, J.J. Redick said it in one of the broadcasts when I was watching him do the game. I think it might have been the Knicks series when he was covering Indiana Knicks. He just said, hey, having been in these, like, sometimes you just have a bad night, even though it's the playoffs, and those bad nights tend to kind of escalate in the playoffs because if you're having a bad night and the other team's having a good night and it's the playoffs, they're not taking their foot off the gas for any reason.
Yeah.
And, there might be some level of, okay, listen, it's not our night. We'll have a short finish line tonight and we'll regroup tomorrow, And tomorrow is unrelated to yesterday and doesn't matter. You can come back out and, again, like I said, game 3, Denver's up 34 after having been down 32. That's a 66-point swing in a matter of basically 3 quarters, which is crazy to think about.
Well, and I thought about you after those first 2 games against Denver, and I don't think I texted you this, but maybe I did. It's just in knowing how, generally speaking, most if not all head coaches are wired. You're up 2 against the champions. You kill them at their place game 2, and you're coming home with Stephen A. Smith, which all the players watch on ESPN, saying that game 2 defensive performance might be the greatest in the history of the playoffs. You got Edwards clips all over social media next to Jordan doing things. So now you got that. So like and I'm not saying any of it's wrong, but when the conversation elevates and you're up on a team and you're coming home with different distractions than the road, generally speaking, coaches don't like that, right?
Yeah, no, and we preach, being on an even keel from the time the playoffs start because, there's several reasons. We just talked about the variance in, from one game to another, up 32, down 34. The other reason that you have to stay on an even keel is the media.
Yeah.
The narratives in the playoffs become wild.
Yeah.
We
lost game 2 because of Krasinski.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Sorry, Johnny Athletic, just kidding.
We before the playoffs started, we were underdogs to Phoenix.
Yeah.
And then 6 games later, they're picking us to win the championship. So it's a little
prisoner of the moment.
Yeah, and it's also can be distracting. And for a young team not having ever gone through it, it does take its toll no matter how you try to avoid it. And our game 3 performance against Denver was indicative of that. We didn't have the sharpness. We should have known, and we knew they were going to go, but we should have responded earlier to the way that they were going to come out. And we just didn't. And it was a lesson learned. But the hard part about that lesson was it wasn't that they just won game 3. It was that they won in such a convincing style. It changed the confidence and the momentum of the series back to their favor. Now they get game 4 in our place, which was we were better, but they still won convincingly. And now they had all the confidence, and we were starting to ask ourselves questions. Had we played better in game 3, we maybe win in 5.
Yeah. Game 4, the Jamal Murray 60-footer.
Yeah.
Yeah. That 13-point swing or something in 20 seconds?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's a locker room like when you go in there and all of that has just happened?
Yeah. I mean, at that point in time, the locker room, I can tell you what I was like. I was annoyed because I knew that in these playoff games and those moments and controlling the end of quarters and end of games and all this stuff that we were inconsistent with, to be quite honest with you. Game 2 in the Dallas series was clearly an end of game failure. Those things they kill you in the playoffs. They absolutely kill you.
Yeah.
We hadn't played particularly well in game 4, but we were in the game. We figured it was just a matter of time until we get our footing back, and we should have been down 6, 7 at halftime. Instead, we're down 12. And then they come out and put a little run on, and now we're chasing the game, and it feels like too much.
Chris Finch, coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, kicking off 9 to noon, some Timberwolves closure, courtesy of Prize Picks and also Second Harvest Heartland and twoharvest.org. And we're going to get into that at the end of the next segment with Anthony Edwards being part of the conversation to land the plane there. Fair to say he definitely established himself as an alpha and entered superstar status with much of what he did throughout the totality of the postseason. And 2 years ago, just to say entering alpha/superstar status, I think it's fair to say that because of his age and being 2 years removed from throwing it to Ja Morant, then the whole thing's over. You know what I'm saying? So, you remember that and the maybe confusion, indecisiveness, whatever. And then some of the things he did throughout this postseason. Holy cow, what a jump.
Yeah, and his playoff career in general has basically been one of ascension.
Yeah.
And, the Dallas series, he still had great moments. I think overall, there were things that frustrated him, and we talked about that earlier, but he gives him a body of work to go into the summer with a bit between his teeth and some specifics to keep growing, getting better and better. But it's incredible to have watched, firsthand. I think he had 36 points in his first ever playoff game 2 years ago.
Memphis,
yeah. And I remember before those playoffs started, I thought, Anthony's, I didn't think the moment was going to be too big. I thought he was going to try to do too much back in that Memphis series.
Out of love for the team trying to win.
Yeah, just I'm
get
here.
on my shoulders.
Exactly. I'm here. Let me just go. And in a way he did, but he did it in a controlled way and within the context of everything we were trying to do. And it's really been that way since we got started in the playoffs. So, but this year he saw many more different looks than he's ever seen. Thought he did a really good job of figuring out a way through to be aggressive for himself and create a lot of offense for his teammates.
I'd imagine, Chris, with the players, you learned a lot about all of them and how they handle certain types of high-level pressure. Many of them never have seen, right?
Yeah, and coming into this playoffs, one of our concerns was, how would Jaden and Naz play? Given that they missed last year's playoff. And 2 years ago, against Memphis, Naz was a bit player, played here and there, maybe in the series, not much. And Jaden actually played better as the series went along. But we thought the biggest damage done to ourselves last season was those guys not being able to have that playoff experience against Denver. Coming into this year, we felt like, okay, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but both of them, had really great playoffs for such a good run and for really their first immersed experience.
And with the experience from an experience standpoint, or just seeing something for the first time and just how it feels and the pressure that goes with it, and always working tired and things like that. not along with the players, I would imagine that plays into the staff too, and you, where you guys had to overcome distraction with the toppling, and I'd guess conference finals is the farthest some or many on the staff had gone, right?
Yeah, I think. Elston's been in a conference final, Sacramento, and maybe in one other stopple.
Maybe Corliss?
Corliss as well, yeah. So there's been a few, but it was great for our staff. They did a wonderful job.
We're going to duck out of Chris Finch here. The whole thing's going to be podcastable on that free iHeartRadio app. You'll find it there. Next up, the program. Where did Common play? What did he shoot? Where did he hit it on one? All that you'll find out right around the corner, right here on The Fan.
Podcast today's Paul Allen Show, or listen back to previous show and interviews by going to the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.